Right, this topic is about search intent, a really important concept to understand, and the raison d'etre for Google in its mission as a search engine. So, just to work through this, so the term intent is used to describe someone's motivations when they use a search engine like Google or YouTube or Bing or anything else. So it's whatever they enter into their search box or speak to Siri or Alexa increasingly. They're really just describing what they want. So some types of searches, it's pretty obvious what the search intent is. So if somebody searches for cheap holidays in Europe, emergency plumber near me, how to fix a 2014 MacBook screen, best Italian recipe, how old is Ed Sheeran, just a few of them as some ideas. It's fairly obvious what the person looking for is trying to find, and that's what Google's purpose is. So if somebody looks for an emergency plumber near me, Google needs to think, how do I find a plumber? Do I know they're an emergency plumber? And where is near me? So what's the location of the searcher? And somebody searching for emergency plumber has very high buyer intent, I would say. They're looking for somebody they can hire immediately, I would say. Somebody browsing another term like cheap holidays in Europe might be at the early stages of the buying process, might be just browsing, they might be looking to book tomorrow. Somebody Googling how old is Ed Sheeran or best Italian pasta sauce recipes shows little buyer intent, I would say, although the purpose of the search is clear. So what we want as small business owners is to be finding people that have high buyer intent, they're looking to hire, and if they're not looking to hire immediately, they're certainly researching, and that's part of their intent. We need to lock into those kind of searches and make sure that we appear at the top of Google for it. So just to illustrate a point on search intent as a buyer, I want you to think about the word photographer and photography, obviously very closely related. Google knows these terms are closely related. But if you type in the word London photographer to Google, you'll get a completely different set of results than London photography. So I would suggest that London photographer as a search, people are looking for a London-based photographer. Whereas somebody typing in London photography, I would suggest is people more interested in looking at photographs and images of London. So you really need to do your research and look up those terms yourself to see what results Google is returning and what's the search intent behind that. I'll give you a bit of an insight into how Google works and thinks and how you need to think when you're running your SEO. And as I said, all this is down to Google's mission. That's its purpose. So when Google set up, it tried to work out what's the best way to meet search intent, and back in the day they would look at things like number of backlinks to an individual site. That's still used today, but that was a very sort of crude method then. Now these days Google's much more sophisticated. It uses hundreds of different ranking factors in its algorithm. It's using AI to understand words, sentences, mood. It can read images. It can understand text written on top of images, etc., etc. So getting very, very clever. All this is down to trying to focus on search intent. Another thing here I'm going to mention is expertise, authority, and trustworthiness, EAT. And this is something where to meet the search intent, you need to be the best answer to the question. So Google wants to find people who are, or people or websites or brands or whatever, who are expert, authoritative and trusted. And that's what you want to do in your SEO and your website. So you want to make sure your website is secure and easy to read and offers good advice and people trust it and there are good reviews, and all this builds up a profile of you and your business to Google and inclines Google to rank you higher up the list as a result. So this idea of being the best answer to the question, being trusted and expert and authoritative is something that's going to go through the whole course. So on that level, SEO is really, really simple, isn't it? Just be the best answer to the question, be all these things, be trusted, etc. Make sure your website's secure, run through the course, and that's fine. So that's great at sort of a high level, but SEO is not that easy, because if it was just a case of writing a few keywords and adding a few bits of text and then you'll be number one, well, that would be too easy and everyone would be doing it. So one thing to have as a perspective when you're going through this is, and it's a bit of a sobering thought, is the vast majority of websites don't see any organic traffic at all. They're never found on Google for any reason, well over 90%. And the vast majority of websites are just not ranked by Google as the best answer to the question. So that is a bit of a sobering thought. The good news is, though, most small business owners don't do anything substantive on their SEO, don't really understand it, don't really pursue it as a marketing strategy. And in your niche, in your area, there are probably only a handful of competing businesses, so they're actually spending any time on it. So this is an opportunity for you to get ranked high on Google and to compete against them. If you do this, and you can be the best answer to Google's question or the search query, you will have a constant stream of leads, because you'll be identified as something that matches buyer intent for somebody that wants to hire, and Google will send them to your website, and hopefully you'll be able to convert them into a lead and a booking. So a couple of action steps. Think about your niche, think about the search intent of what people are looking for in there. Google some of these terms yourself and see what comes up in the results. Google your own terms, have a look at competitors, and then also have a think about your own current website. So have you got keywords that you've been targeting already? How well do they match the search intent? Now you've had a chance to think about it and look at some of these things. So just think about both these areas, and then we'll move on to the next lesson about strategy.